Hi everybody, welcome back to Coffee Can Creations. My name is Laura and I'm so excited that you're here today. This is a stencil project where you make a stencil out of stencil vinyl on your Cricut, and then you put it on a piece of wood and stencil with paint like you would just a normal, heavy plastic stencil. So I got this little plaque type thing at Hobby Lobby, and it was $5.99. It wasn't that expensive. It's painted and then stenciled and then stained, but I wanted to add some kind of little embellishment to make it extra cute. So I added these to it. So we're gonna get going and I'm gonna show you how I made the sign. So thank you everybody who has liked my Facebook page, who is following me here on YouTube. There's a little bell down below this video on YouTube, and if you click on that bell, it will always notify you anytime I have a new video up. Let's get started.
Okay, so we're going to dive into Design Space. I'm going to create a rectangle here to type my hashtag choose kindness on, making sure that it's the size of my project so that it kind of gives me a frame of reference. I'm going to unlock that square so that I can turn it into a rectangle and drag that to about 23 inches was about how long I wanted it to be. Next, I'm going to select text. I'm going to type in what I want on my sign, which in this case is hashtag choose kindness. And once I get this all typed out, I'm going to position that choose kindness over above the rectangle. And now I'm going to just pull that out. Make sure that I get that sized, how tall and how wide I want that. And in this case, I want it to fill up that whole 22-inch area. So I'm just adjusting that. And some fonts don't work very well when you kind of stretch them down, but this one did. I kind of wanted it to be like a tall font. So I'm just kind of sticking it up here at the top. I don't really know why. You don't have to do that. So that I can hit make it. And it's going to take me into my next screen where I'm going to get it set up in order for it to cut. You'll notice here I checked to see how long I need to make sure my vinyl piece is. And then up at the top, it's given me a little warning to let me know I can't use my 12 by 12 mat. So in this case, I'm using my 12 by 24 inch mat. Here I am cutting this vinyl. I'm using the Oracal 813 stencil vinyl. It is a little thinner than your normal like removable or permanent vinyls. Definitely a lot thinner than your HTV vinyls. And you can see how it's got that little like light wrinkle there in the middle of it. You want to be really careful when you're unrolling this. Before I did this, I actually unrolled it and kind of let it lay open for a few minutes. Because it kind of has a tendency to want to separate, and so you just want to be careful when you're stretching that out. Here I'm going to choose the type of vinyl that I'm using in this project. I go up to the top, select vinyls, and then when I get down to the vinyl category, I'm going to look for the stencil vinyl, and this is going to let my Cricut Explore Air 2 know how much pressure to put on the vinyl by which vinyl I choose. So you can see there at the top, custom material set to vinyl. I leave the default at just normal pressure. And here is my screen kind of letting me know the percentage of my cut as it's cutting on my Cricut machine. Here I am. This is just getting it loaded into the machine. It's going to start cutting here. And I think pretty soon here I speed this up a little bit. I apologize for that shadow of my camera hanging above the Cricut. I'm learning here. I'm gonna get better. I'm gonna do better. So again, I just have this in fast mode, and it is the video's sped up here too, so that we don't have to watch the entire cutting process. After this was done cutting, the next thing I did was I painted my wood, and I kind of used like I think it was a bisque something. It was just like a acrylic paint. I'm just using a little foam brush there that I got at Hobby Lobby, and I just did one coat on this because I was okay with kind of seeing the wood through the project on parts of it. So I just did a pretty quick coat of paint over the top of this, and then I made sure that I got the sides and the ends on the sides But I covered this in this bisque color paint, and you want to make sure and let this dry really well. Obviously you don't see my drying time, but I did let it dry really well before placing my stencil vinyl on top of it. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to weed, where I take out all of those, all the letters, so that I can create my stencil. You want to make sure when you're creating a stencil that you leave your middles. You can see that hashtag, I leave the middle in that. Like if you have an O, you want to make sure you leave the O middle in it, so that when you put it down as a stencil, it stencils the letter exactly how you want it. I love weeding. It's like one of my favorite parts of working with my Cricut. So here I am getting to the end. Got this sped up a little bit. And I'm going to take a X-Acto knife here in just a second and just try to cut off some of the excess. I should have cut that off a little bit before I put it down on my vinyl. In order to get this stencil off of my vinyl, I like to turn the entire project upside down and pull the mat off of the stencil versus pulling the stencil off of the mat. And so you'll see that. See, I flip that upside down. I get a little corner pulled up, and then I bend the mat backwards. That way it doesn't pull the vinyl letters off. It doesn't make wrinkles in my vinyl. See, there's no wrinkles in it, and it comes off so much nicer if you pull the mat off of the vinyl. So the next thing we're going to do is we need to get this transferred onto my wood project, which is now dry. So I'm going to cut myself a piece of transfer paper here. This is the first time I've ever tried this Paper Studio transfer paper, and I really liked it. The Paper Studio is the Walmart brand, and I've never used it before, and I had actually bought this when I first got my Cricut. It's just been sitting on my shelf and I hadn't used it. So I did try this transfer paper this time, and I felt like it had a really good grip when I wanted it to, but it came off really easy when I needed it to. So I will definitely buy this again, and it was $7.99, and then it goes on sale for 50% off every other week. So $4 for a thing of transfer paper is really good. So I'm peeling this transfer off, and then I'm gonna lay that transfer onto my stencil, and this is what's gonna help me to position it on my wood project. You want to try to make sure you get any wrinkles out of here that you can. I'm just pulling this back so I can put that on a little more smooth. And then once you get this transfer paper on, you just want to smooth that out, and then you are going to peel the back off of your stencil so that all I will have left is that blue layer of vinyl, and it's stuck on my transfer paper. So I just peel this up and off, making sure that every part comes with it that I need to come up with it. And then I'm going to take that over to my wood, and I'm going to get that placed evenly on my wood. The beauty of doing this on video is I can cut this so you don't see how long it takes me to get that centered on there. But once I get that stuck down, then I go through and I'm going to pull back and pull that transfer tape off. So now I have my stencil perfectly centered on my piece of wood, and I'm ready to get out my paint and do my stenciling. I do go through here and kind of burnish that and make sure I get the wrinkles out of it so that the paint doesn't seep through. You know, I don't know why I didn't this time, but sometimes what I'll do is I'll take a little bit of Mod Podge and I'll put a thin little layer of Mod Podge over those letters before I stencil it, and that's a really great little trick to help keep your paint from seeping down underneath your stencil. This one turned out pretty well, especially if you're somebody who has a tendency to maybe stencil a little heavy. That Mod Podge trick is a really good trick for you. You want to put that Mod Podge down, just let it dry, and then start your stenciling. I think I end up doing a couple layers here, and I sped this up so we don't have to watch me stencil the entire thing. You want to make sure, so, and I apologize, I did not realize this was out of the frame, but here I am pulling my stencil off after I'm done stenciling. I didn't let it dry probably as long as I should have. I usually let it just sit for like a few minutes before I pull it off. You want it to be a little wet so that those edges come up nicely. And again, I'm so sorry you can't see this very well. This is not very good. And now I'm going through and I'm using my weeder to weed out the middles of the letters that need to come off, that are still stuck down there. And again, I should have let it dry for a few minutes, and I literally stenciled it and then pulled my stencil up. I don't know what I was thinking. I think I was just excited to get this video going. The next thing I did is I went through, and I don't have it all on video, but I went through and just sanded it just to kind of make the letters just look a little roughed up before I put my stencil on it. I used this Minwax wood finish. It's dark walnut, which is my favorite color of stencil. I use this on almost everything. But I'm going to use my little paint can open here and get into my stain. And I'm going to, I just put a light layer of stain over this. I just use an old dirty rag that I've used for staining before. Getting my gloves on. And you just start going over this with stain. Pretty much once I get one, I put stain lightly over one section, and then I go back with like a clean part of that rag and I kind of wipe it off, just so it's a little bit lighter. I didn't want it quite this dark, but I'm putting it on really thin here. So when I rub it off, it doesn't get a lot lighter. See, you can see there, this is me just finishing up rubbing it off, but it's a little lighter than when the stain first goes on. Once the stain's dried, I put a light layer, actually put 2 light layers of Mod Podge just to kind of seal everything in. Then I'm gonna really let my Mod Podge dry really well. And then I chose these little flowers here to put on the ends of my project. I like it when wood signs have some kind of little other texture, some kind of embellishment, either knobs or handles, or in this case, I put these little flowers on it that I found at Hobby Lobby. But I thought it really turned out cute. And here's the finished project in my friend's office. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.